Joseph Drumheller, who is he? He is a guy with some very deep spiritual connections, not only to his version of the experience of divine, but he's also very deeply connected to nature. And he's a guy that's very passionate about living and connecting to other people. So I've had what I would call two spiritual awakenings in my life, and they were both processes that last probably, 18 months to 3 years, each of them. And the first one was in 1991, and I was intrigued with hypnotherapy. I'd read a newsletter in a bookstore way back when. And I looked up a woman who actually did hypnotherapy in a small town that I was living in. And my initial experiences in hypnotherapy were mind-blowing. And so deeply mystical experiences. So we went into this session, and she said, she's somewhat of an intuitive woman, and she said, well, why have you come to see me? And I said, well, I read this article in a newsletter. I thought it'd be really fascinating to try it out. And then she kind of looked at me, and she paused, and then she asked again, no, why are you really here? And I was kind of stunned. I didn't know what to say. I was like this normal guy who, grew up, went to school, got an education, got married, had a couple little kids, and I was just kind of doing that. I was doing the normal life thing. And then I said something to her that when I was saying it, and then even afterwards, after I'd said it, I couldn't believe what was coming out of my mouth. It's like somebody else was saying it. I don't know if you ever had an experience like that. Yeah. And what I said to this woman was, I said, well, I feel like I have a block to my creativity. And even when I said that, that's really funny because I came from a very uncreative family. I have no creative inclinations whatsoever. I was just kind of this normal guy with kids, So then we went into the session. She took me into this deep state of relaxation. And then she was doing whatever hypnotherapy techniques that she was using. And then she stopped right in the middle, just stopped. And of course, being somewhat intuitive, she just said, what does the word abandonment mean to you? And as soon as she said that, it's like I just exploded into tears. And I started sobbing and weeping. And I saw every issue of abandonment that I've had throughout the course of my life just come at me like one after the other, like I was speeding, like a freight train speeding down the track, seeing all these abandonment issues going by me. And so we finished the session, and I walk outside to my car, and I realized two things at the moment when I was finished. And the first thing I realized is that I was really embarrassed because I had just melted down in front of this woman that I didn't even know, even though she was a very nice woman. And then I realized also that I had stumbled onto some very powerful medicine, and I was hooked from that moment on. So I went home that day, and when I got home, my marriage that had been on the rocks, we'd been doing marriage counseling, we were kind of struggling with money, and we had two little kids. As soon as I got home, my marriage ended. That was it. So circumstances beyond my control, my marriage ended, and I had to end up living in a friend's teepee for the summer, in some nearby property. And the job I had that I was working, trying to get by, I was looking for a job at the time, and the one I had in this little town, I got politicked out of that job, and so I lost my job. And then winter was coming, I could no longer stay in this teepee, so I had to move, and so I lost all my friends in this town. So I lost my wife, my kids, my job, and my friends. But all the while I was doing this, I was going back to see this woman about every other week, and I was having these mystical experiences, like, just mind-boggling stuff every couple of weeks. And so I learned that in that process is that when you go into the subconscious mind like that and you start to give it direction to do healing, it's going to go to work right away, and it's going to start to show the effects of it in your external life. And so I didn't know what was going on. So this took me years to kind of piece it together. But when I moved back to my hometown, what happened over the course of the next 3 years or so is that I started playing bass guitar, and I got in this really great band. I started painting, and my paintings eventually ended up on walls of galleries in New York City. And then I started writing, and to this date, I've written probably more than 30 books. So what happened is that in that process of going into this woman and saying I needed a block to my creativity, what happened in this work with her is that every single obstacle that was preventing me from being a creative person got removed. And so unfortunately, it was essentially everything. I had to let go of everything. But in the process, I was kind of reborn into this new being. And then I went on to get certified as a clinical hypnotherapist. And I've been doing that ever since.